Goeiedag, good day, fellow South Africans and citizens of the world. And, wow, you know, they say with old age, old farts like me have a story to tell. And back in 1994, when I first became involved with the internet, the first web browser was called Mosaic. And these so-called YouTube commentators today would have still been in nappies at that time. And here I was actually really being involved in the early days, the evolution of the internet from a little rough track to the superhighway that it is today. I saw it all. I was there. I saw it all. The first videos, the first images that came online, the first coffee pot at the university in America that you could actually watch someone live pouring coffee. That was back in 1994. That's how basic it was. Look at it today. It's a whole new world, isn't it? Well, back then, you had total freedom of speech. You didn't have big tech. Google hadn't even been discovered. Neither had YouTube. Neither had Facebook. But you could report on what you wanted, and as long as it didn't break your own country's laws, there was absolutely no repercussions. How things have changed. And for those more recent YouTube commentators, maybe they need to look back in the mirror to understand how free speech in the world today has become compromised. Do you remember the early days of the internet? It was the Wild West, and that could be bad, but in many ways it was also very good. The internet was decentralized at that time, and information could flow very freely. For the very first time, ordinary people could communicate with others all over the globe on a massive scale. And I believe that was an incredibly positive development for humanity. Unfortunately, the elite were absolutely horrified by this free flow of information, and they became obsessed with restricting it. Today, highly advanced algorithms have been designed to shape our behavior online. We are increasingly being funneled to just a handful of immensely powerful corporate-owned websites, and information on those sites is heavily monitored, controlled, and censored. And while we're talking about that, let me introduce you to the two huge trillion-dollar bodies, investment bodies, that are controlling your world today. BlackRock, which is like the B grade, and right at the top you've got an organization called Vanguard, which is heavily invested in big pharma. Vanguard is the biggest, most powerful financial company, trust, organization, whatever hat you want to put on it. It is the one that is controlling your world right now. That is where the actual New World Order is based. And if you look at the meaning of Vanguard, it's in a battle. It's the one at the forefront, facing the enemy. And for the elite, the enemy are you and I. Because there are too many of us right now, and because they want us to be chattels, slaves, doing whatever they bid us to do. And the ownership and control of what you're allowed to say on this once free platform called the internet is central in their sights. This is what's happening right now. In particular, the largest social media websites have undergone a radical transformation over the past several years. And that's why we have set up lovinglifetv.com, because the videos we put up there, if we put them up on, yes, I know it's populist, as I know that the elite hate that word, but YouTube is populist. Everybody goes there and has a bit of a look and walk around. YouTube is highly censored today. Highly, highly censored. You do not have free speech there. It's just like going to the mainstream media, because if you put your foot out of line, that video is taken down with a community strike. That's why we have lovinglifetv.com, where we can speak without fear or favor. Let's continue. At one time, if you had something interesting to say, it was fairly easy to get something to go viral. But now the largest social media websites systematically suppress certain groups, viewpoints, and belief systems. It's called shadow banning. You know, for example, lovinglifetv.com, which is our new platform, you will never find one of those videos appearing near the top with the relevant keywords, because it's been shadow banned, which means it's sunk right to the bottom if it appears at all in the search engine, because we are going contrary to the wishes of the New World Order and the masters who run these big tech companies. If you're opposed to the dominant narratives that they are trying to push, it is going to be exceedingly difficult for you to get much traction online. Of course, if you get frustrated with the extreme levels of censorship, you could always seek out other social media sites where the censorship is lighter. But the largest social media websites are where all people are. It's like sheep being corralled. They wander around there, like in YouTube, not realizing that they are having information filtered to them. They're not getting the full story. As far as total internet traffic is concerned, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, and Reddit are all in the top 10 platforms visited. I would also consider Wikipedia to be a social media website too, and it is in the top 10 as well. This gives the largest social media companies an extraordinary amount of influence over how people view the world. And one recent survey found that the vast majority of Americans believe that they have too much power. While most Republicans and Democrats believe social media companies wield too much power, Republicans are more likely to hold the view, according to new Pew Research Center survey. A whopping 82% of Republicans and Republican-leaning independents think that social media companies have too much power and influence in politics, compared with 63% of Democrats and Democratic-leaning independents, the survey said. Well, that's fast changing now that the tar brush is also being put on to independents who dare to challenge what is going on with the current lockdown and, you know where I'm going with this, related issues. But even though we believe that they have too much power, we just keep on going back, just like sheep. In fact, most of us are deeply addicted. One recent poll discovered that 73% of British adults can't even imagine going a full 24 hours without at least one screen to stare at. From computers and tablets to smartphones and TV sets nowadays, most people's days consist of staring at one screen and then moving on to the next. As such, a recent poll of 2,000 British adults reports a whopping 73% can't even imagine a full 24 hours with at least one screen to stare at. Well, I have to admit that I fall into that category, but I'm not one of those who've been bought and taken by big tech and their censorship. I'm in there to research and have a look at what is actually going on. And tomorrow night at 8 p.m. Johannesburg time, in fact it's tonight at 8 p.m. Johannesburg time, I'm going to be talking to a very interesting lady about a subject I'm not going to mention here because it would get me a community strike on YouTube, wouldn't it? You've got to love censorship, haven't you? Well, could you do a full day without the internet? The same poll found that adults are spending approximately 6 hours a day in front of screens. Well, I spend probably 15 plus hours a day in front of my computer because I need to research. And they go on to say, we're only awake for about 16 hours a day. Well, that tells you where my day belongs. Needless to say, if you allow anyone to pump 6 hours of programming into your mind each day, it is going to radically alter how you view the world. And that's why lovinglifetv.com is so important, because in there you're going to get a perspective that you are not allowed to put out on platforms like Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, etc., etc. They're completely controlled and completely censored. In addition to frying our minds, being addicted to the internet can also have physical consequences. For example, a different study found a direct link between internet addiction and sleep problems in young people. More evidence suggests the severity of internet addiction, or IA, is directly related to the severity of sleep problems in youth. Results from a study of more than 4,000 adolescent students show IA severity was linked to less sleep and to daytime sleeplessness. In addition, boys aged 12 to 14 years who were addicted to computer games versus social media networking were the most affected. Experts have found that the internet can even make you sick. Medical professionals are telling us that some people can actually develop cyber sickness if they use the internet too much. So it is important to be careful. As with so many other things in life, moderation is the key. Without a doubt, there is still so much about the internet that is very positive. Personally, I've been using it relentlessly to share the truth for more than a decade. The internet has allowed me to touch millions upon millions of people all over the globe, and I'm always encouraged when readers email me from the other side of the planet. We should always remember that the internet is simply a tool. It can be used for great good, but it can also be used for great evil by the big tech platforms. And right now, the elite are ruthlessly clamping down on free speech so that they can impose their values on everyone else. They say they are protecting us by restricting the flow of disinformation, but way too often they're the ones that are spreading disinformation. For example, Joe Biden was accused of spreading disinformation about the COVID pandemic during his recent town hall on CNN. Newsweek looked into that claim and they rated it to be true. True. Joe Biden spreads misinformation about COVID vaccines at a CNN town hall on Wednesday. It is not true that people vaccinated against COVID-19 will not get the disease, be hospitalized, end up in an ICU, or die because of it. So does this mean that we should censor Joe Biden's speech and ban him from all social media platforms? No. I believe that everyone should be allowed to speak, because that is what our founders have always wanted. Unfortunately, freedom of speech on the internet is nearly dead, and with each passing day, there are even more calls for stricter censorship. These are very dark days, and they're getting darker all the time. Now, for you people who've just come onto YouTube and set up YouTube channels in the last few years, you would not be aware of this. But when I was one of those lone rangers who set out in those little tracts of the internet way back in the early 1990s, I saw what freedom of speech was. And what has happened now on the big platforms is that the blinkers have come up. And if you think outside those blinkers, you are cancelled. You are taken down. And that is a tragedy, because the promise of the internet from the very first days was that here everybody would have the ability to have freedom of speech. And I will tell you who the first organizations that actually stamped on freedom of speech on the internet. And of course, one of them was the Anti-Defamation League. Yeah. The Anti-Defamation League. You go and Google it, you go and see what it's all about, and you'll start getting the picture. Please remember to register on lovinglifetv.com to be kept informed. And that's why so many of my videos now do not appear on YouTube, because I have to be very careful. Okay, I have to be very careful, because there are a lot of people out there who are determined to take down Loving Life. I know who they are, or I know some of them are. Obviously, I don't know who all of them are. But that's why lovinglifetv.com, we can continue to report without any of the restrictions that these people, same people, many of them, are having by sticking to Censorship City, also known as YouTube, also known as Google, also known as Alphabet, which is pretty much owned and controlled by Vanguard and BlackRock, which in turn are owned and controlled by the New World Order and people like the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers. It's a little bit of a winkle down the line. That's how it works. That's why lovinglifetv.com, the buck stops here. I don't have to answer to anyone when I put a video up. Take care, guys. Bye for now.